Welcome to Plan Today on Tomorrow, where we talk money, longevity, legacy. We talk about all kinds of great things on this show. Today, we're going to dive into 3 essentials for a secure retirement. We're going to be talking about making your money last, gentlemen. We're going to be talking about preparing for long-term care, which has been a hot topic for us for a long time. And we're actually going to talk about your legacy, protecting that legacy a little bit. And then at the end of the show, we're going to do some Q&As that have came in through our website. And we're going to talk about the market in 2025 a little bit. But today's going to be a great show, guys. But as always, welcome to Plan Today on Tomorrow. My name is Gary Thurman, CEO of Guardian Investment Advisors. And I'm here today with my friends Tim McDermott and Bobby Futch and Tristan Baker over in the corner. So, Bobby, what's going on with you this morning, buddy?
Man, I'm good. We've had a good week so far. It's just getting started, really, but it's been a busy one. A lot of people coming in here, you know, looking for retirement help, getting ready for the summer, and just trying to get their stuff in.
Tanner over there.
Oh, yeah, he's a little jealous, isn't he?
Yeah, my wife and I just got back from a great trip to Mexico. And it was amazing. We spent 5 days, I guess.
Yeah,
Gary,
5 days down there. Yep,
down in Mexico, and ate a bunch of good Mexican food. I did really good with the sunscreen.
You did.
Nice.
Gary made fun of me because my
said,
sunscreen is like white paint. You know, because
I said a little Tanner.
I looked over and said, "Are you going to like a ritual or something, buddy? Like, what are you doing here, man?"
Yeah, I don't want to get burned. I burn easily. So,
yeah, me too. I was right there with you, buddy. Yeah, I don't like to get burned. It is no fun at all. Bobby, you said we have a lot of people coming in right now. And Tim, I'll come over to you. What do you think is the number one concern on people's minds right now? The folks that you and Tim are sitting down with.
Well, there's really 2 things. One is if they're getting ready for retirement, do I have enough cash flow to last throughout retirement? And then what's going on in the markets?
Yeah.
You know, the markets.
Everybody's a little nervous.
Little nervous, you know, and I understand it because there's a lot that goes onto the television. Every time you turn on the TV, I don't care what news station you listen to, it's all doom and gloom. But I think we're going to talk about this a little later.
We are.
It's not all bad. You know, there's a lot of good things going on in the United States right now.
If you're just watching the news, it sounds all bad, right?
The news always makes it bad.
Yeah, it's all for views and clicks and eyeballs, but really there's a lot of really good stuff going on.
Yeah, there is. Tim, tell me about your week, buddy. What you got going on?
Oh, I am in the midst of deciding how we're going to landscape our yard right now.
Ooh.
What a process and a job that is. I've been fertilizing, and thank goodness I didn't have to run the sprinklers much this month.
That is very true. Very true. A lot of rain.
Yeah, no, we were out back looking at some landscaping this week, and went over to the Ottawa. It's at the Ottawa Nursery.
Ottawa Nursery, yeah, it's a great place.
Awesome place, man. They've got bulk mulch over there, and
yeah,
all kinds of stuff. So, I know I sound like an old man now, but it's exciting.
That's how you know you're a dad when you're like bulk mulch, man. That's awesome.
Woo, right? I can get it for 25 cents less a load. The Ottawa Nursery's great. The Barn Nursery's great. There's a lot of places here in town for all those landscaping needs. And I was fortunate enough to be with Bobby on that trip to Mexico. We did have a great time. Got to hang out with a lot of fellow advisors and, you know, actually talk a little shop, even though we were in Mexico. So it was really cool for us to experience that. And I can't wait for the next one. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Gentlemen, Bobby just mentioned, you know, income planning or cash flow, I think he said. And that seems to be probably the number one topic in the country right now because longevity risk. We talk about it all the time. But, Tim, I want to start with you. You know, when folks are coming in, I would think one of their main questions is, hey, I need this much money a month to maintain my lifestyle. Here's my expenses. But I think a lot of people are getting offset a little bit, thinking maybe they actually need more, you know, to maintain that lifestyle. Maybe they don't because they're actually retiring now. So income planning is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest concern we see right now because, I mean, why did you work for 60 years or 50 years and save up all that money for it? It's really just to create an income for yourself in retirement so you can enjoy things like landscaping in Mexico, right?
Yeah, I'll actually take a step back, Gary, and say a lot of people don't come into us wondering if they have enough cash flow. They come in with their 401ks, their IRAs, and say, I have X dollars saved in a retirement account. Is that enough? I really think that's kind of
what? Enough to retire?
I think that's really
enough to create the cash flow that they need, right?
Yeah.
That's the end scenario that we always end up at, right?
That's right. And you'd be surprised by how many people don't have a spending plan and don't really know what they need. And so we help guide people through that. And that's really the first thing we do for a lot of people is this pile of money enough to retire? I don't know, right?
So
what are you spending? What do you need?
Does the income planning come down to risk levels, Tim? Like, are they taking too much risk on? Are they plan on pulling all their money out of their old 401k? I mean, too much risk, can that really hurt that cash flow?
It could, depending on how you're getting that cash flow, right? And to your point of, hey, do we think we have enough cash flow? Is this enough to sustain the lifestyle? A lot of times it's not as much as you, sometimes it's not as much as you think it is, or maybe it's more than what you actually think it is. And it really comes back to the people who have planned well, the people who have written down what their expenses are on a monthly basis, who understand that, usually have the best understanding of what they actually need. Because what we'll see a lot is, hey, we only need $5,000 a month. Great, that covers the mortgage, the car payment, the internet, the water. Did you think about groceries? What about the trip, 3 states over to see your grandkids,
right.
Twice a year, X, Y, Z, right? And a lot of times that stuff isn't factored in. They're looking at the necessities. And so it depends on how you're structuring and doing your homework beforehand. We'll help walk you through that if you haven't done it. But those are very important numbers to know at the end of the day.
So I'm a little shocked. I'll be honest with you. Like, I would think, I'm 52 years old. If I'm retiring at 65, 66, I think I would want to have a spending plan down to the T. All T's crossed, all I's dotted, Bobby. But Tim just said a lot of people are coming in. They don't count that trip to Starbucks every afternoon. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So are they missing things?
It happens all the time when we meet with prospects. And we ask, what do you need in retirement to live the lifestyle you want? And they just don't know. It happens to all of us. We have sufficient cash flow. The money comes in. We pay the bills. We're not stressed out about it. But what is that number?
Yeah.
And once the paychecks stop, then you need to actually kind of plan and shoot for a number in retirement. And a lot of people look at retirement as, I want to retire at 65. I want to retire with $1 million. I think that's really the wrong way to do it. You really need to look at it and say, can I generate the cash flow I want in retirement, and what does it take to get there? And you can kind of work backwards, and you can find out, what does that 401k or IRA need to be? What age can I make sure that income is guaranteed or pretty set in stone?
We've done this a couple times for a few clients, around town. Hey, we want to retire early. What does that look like? This is what we have.
Right.
Can we actually generate the income that we want? And in a couple of cases, we've said, yeah, you're fine. You can do it. And a couple more cases, we said, hey, you can get this much income. Is this enough for you? No. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we need to work another year or two to build up to this point.
So you just mentioned the word guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Guaranteed. People ask me all the time, Gary, what's the largest risk out there? It's always longevity risk, because living longer brings all the other risk factors up to another level, especially with income planning, Bobby. And how are you guys able to go, Mr. and Miss Client, you need $5,000 a month. I'm just using that for an example for you listeners out there. Here's how we're going to guarantee that $5,000 a month, and then we can play, or we can use the other money for something else. How are we guaranteeing income?
Yeah, so a lot of that planning is first working into that figure and then figuring out how we can secure that. So Social Security is a huge part of that. If you're lucky enough to have a pension nowadays, that's a really big part of it. Pensions are kind of dinosaurs that are going away.
Yeah.
And it's super important that if you don't have a pension, you create your own pension. And we're real big fans of using properly structured fixed income annuities to do that. And they're great tools. Annuities are not what they were 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
They're pretty slick now.
Yeah.
And the actuaries have sharpened their pencils and gotten people a lot more income than you used to be able to get.
Right.
And that can be guaranteed. And it can be joint for you and your spouse.
That's
It's
huge.
a huge deal.
I was reading a retirement guide that I picked up at the airport on our way down to Mexico, Bobby and Tim. The retirement guide was still using that 4% rule. 60-40, pull out 4%, you'll have income till 90. And what's amazing to me is 4%, Well, some of these fixed index annuities are paying 6, 7, 7.5% in income levels. It seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, the 4% rule came from the old Monte Carlo calculator, right? Where they run your simulation 10,000 different times based on the volatility and the average return that you're getting. And, based on that math, there's a 95% chance you make it to age 95 without running out of money, right? That's good. You're probably not going to have any issues, but there's no guarantees at the end of the day, right?
And that was back when quality fixed income yields were much higher than they are now.
That's right. Do you know when that Monte Carlo calculator fails is when you retire during a recessionary period?
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And so if you think if you're nervous about the market, which we hear a lot right now,
right?
Are you concerned about a recession happening in the next couple of years when you're getting ready to retire? That's when that 4% rule could fail on you. So not only are you pulling a greater guaranteed income, a greater percentage income, I should say, but it's also guaranteed at the end of the day, right?
And are you guys looking at this? I'll ask you both. We got about a minute and a half here. Are we looking at the fixed index annuities as an alternative to the bond markets because the bonds are so unstable right now, Tim?
Yeah, 100%, right? There's no bond out there that I know of that can't fail. There's some that haven't failed.
Right.
But it doesn't mean they can't. And they're only paying an average of 4.5% for an A-rated bond right now. If you want to get into junk bonds, you can get a higher yield, but you take on quite a bit more risk. And then what's the point in being in bonds at that point, right?
Yeah, it disappears, right, Bobby? I mean,
it certainly could.
And again, you said they're paying 4.5. We've got properly structured income annuities paying 6.5, 7% guaranteed roll-ups for income every year
for the rest of your life, and there's no interest rate risk there.
That's right.
Right? And interest rates can't move up and down on a fixed indexed annuity payout.
That's the big kicker to bonds right now.
Yeah, I can see that. And folks, here's the whole bottom line here. Income is going to be the most important thing going into retirement because you want to make it last. We're going to try to make this easy for you. All we'd like for you to do is simply text the word income to 877-706-7526. Again, the word income, 877-706-7526. I'll say it again, the phone number, 877-706-7526. Text the word income. When you do that, you're going to get our income guide, and then you'll have an opportunity to come in and sit down with Tim and Bobby, and let's make sure you have a proper income set up for retirement. I do want to talk about income a little bit more before we jump into long-term care on the next segment, guys. So, guys, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Can you push that monitor back just...
We know the market is going to get worse from here. This is the biggest monthly decline in 10 years. People's 401ks took a major hit.
Well, my investments are tanking. My retirement isn't going as planned. I can't believe I let my kid talk me into buying crypto. I mean, what is that anyway?
This was the fourth worst contraction in history.
So how are you two doing?
Your financial future doesn't have to be uncertain. I'm Gary Thurman with Guardian Investment Advisors. If you've amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. This is one of the greatest tax windows in history. Now is the time to take advantage of this tax discount while you can. All of our advisors are fiduciaries that specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, and more. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis. Welcome back to Plan Today on Tomorrow. My name is Gary Thurman, CEO, Guardian Investment Advisors. We're having a great conversation today about income planning. And before we jump into another segment, I want to finish something up. I had a client call me the other day. Guys, this client's been with us for years and years and years. I was actually lucky enough to start working with these folks in their mid-40s, right? Well, guess what? I've been doing this a long time. They're about to hit retirement, and they're pretty excited about it, and they've done a great job. They've accumulated some really, really good money. They were really, really smart. Here's my thing, though, and I love it because he's listened to our show. He goes, Gary, I want to know about those go-go years. Can you set a plan up to pull more money out between 65 and 75 and then back it down a little bit? Let's talk about that, Tim. The go-go years, probably the happiest point of retirement, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a little depressing to think about.
Yeah, I know.
But yes, no, that's
it's happy.
That's when we get to go do our travel. That's when we get to go see the grandkids. That's when we get to, have fun. That we're retired from work. We're young enough to enjoy it. Let's go have fun. Let's go. right?
You just said the key word. You're healthy. You're healthier mentally, physically, right? So that's when we want to go do stuff and have fun. So are you guys seeing a lot of that where folks want to pull more money out in the first 5 to 10 years and then back down a little bit, Bobby?
Yeah, without a doubt. Whether it's travel or, spoiling the grandkids, it's really not uncommon for us to say, the first 10 years in retirement, we want to spend in excess of what our working budget was, right?
Correct.
Because we all spend a lot of time at work and, we're not spending money while we're there, we're earning it. But now when you retire, you've got all day to go do whatever you want. That can get expensive.
Yeah.
But that's not a problem if you plan for it. And we help a lot of clients do that, figure out how they can spend their go-go years in retirement, spending more money than they were when they were working. And that's cool. You just got to plan for it,
right?
You got to plan for it.
So after the go-go years, we got the slow-go years. Things slow down a little bit. And then we got the no-go years, unfortunately, right? So there's a lot of steps to this planning. And one more thing I want to talk about, we talk about on the show every week, but I just think it's so important. And Tim, that's making sure you're maximizing your Social Security benefits. Thousands and thousands of people turn Social Security on at the wrong time. How are we helping clients there?
Yeah, there's 101 ways to look at this, and this is usually one of the biggest questions that I think most retirees have is how do I get the most from Social Security? And most of the time when we look at this, right, we're going to look at your situation as a whole, but I would say more times than not, we look at this and we say it probably makes sense to turn it on as soon as possible, assuming you're not going to be penalized for taking it. What does that mean? It means, hey, if you're done working before full retirement age, go ahead and turn on that Social Security.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Bobby?
Yeah, I agree with that. Without a doubt, if you're going to retire and hang it up for good, you should really consider taking your Social Security. A lot of people get hung up on the 8% roll-up and, let me wait till I'm 70 or as late as I can. But really, if you need the income to spend it and you're spending the assets you saved or Social Security, it almost always makes sense to spend Social Security's money.
That's right.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And let your money continue to grow in retirement.
There's a reason they give you that 8% roll-up, that attractive 8% roll-ups, because the U.S. government knows the longer they hold on to the money, the better they can use it for, right?
That's exactly right. So it's kind of counterintuitive. You see that, your Social Security statement, you say, man, if I wait till 70, I can get, a couple $100 or $1,000 more.
Yeah.
But really, what is that doing to your retirement assets?
Well, we got to look at life expectancy too, right? I mean, do you have longevity in your family? Then maybe we wait till 70. But if you don't,
yeah, without a doubt. And that's a question we ask, a lot of prospects and clients that we talk to is, I know what Social Security Administration and the government says your life expectancy is going to be, but how long did your parents live?
Yeah.
How healthy were your parents? That's a much better indicator of how long you're going to live than some actuary up in Washington.
I love it. Tim, I'm going to throw a random question we got from a viewer at you right now. I got a couple. They're 68 years old, recently retired, and pulling from their IRA for income. We're talking about income. But they're wondering if it makes sense to start converting part of that to a Roth now that their tax bracket is lower. Could paying a little more taxes now save them taxes in the future?
It's like a pop quiz.
Pop quiz.
I would tend to agree with that. I'd want to understand a little bit more about their taxable situation. What bracket are they in? What bracket could they be in? So on and so forth, right? But more times than not, right now we're in the third lowest tax bracket we've seen in U.S. history. Why not pay taxes when taxes are cheap?
Right.
Taxes are on sale. It's been the big key phrase here recently. I don't know about you. I want to pay my taxes, my fair share, but not a penny more.
That's right.
If you can take advantage of paying the least amount now, why not do that? On top of that, once it goes into that Roth, it grows tax-free. It comes out tax-free later on. It has to fit the situation, but I would say more times than not, it probably would in their case.
So it has to make sense, right, Bobby? And this new tax bill that we're looking at right now could extend that low tax bracket for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, the one big beautiful bill act.
One big beautiful bill
that's in the Senate right now. They're working on it. We're hopeful it'll be passed, right? And that will extend the 2017 tax cuts. Really for the next 4 years at most.
At most.
Now, the thing about Washington is everything's permanent until they change it.
At least.
At least.
Yeah,
at least.
the minimum. Yeah.
4 years. And again, that's just going to make this low tax bracket extend, and it makes it, we got a window to plan.
That's right. Plan.
Much larger window to plan. And we make a joke about this all the time when we meet with our clients is, we're going to do some planning for you. You may not like it, but we want you to pay more in taxes.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Your accountant's probably not
Yeah, I
telling
was
you
going to say,
that.
your
That's right.
CPA is going to tell you to pay less taxes now,
Right.
which they always do. It's their
Right.
job to do so. It's a tough sell at the end of the day, isn't it, Bobby?
Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. And we can sit down and run through the numbers with you and say, listen, if you want to withhold a little more or you want to write a bigger check come next April, we can show you why that could probably benefit you moving forward. Tax-free income is an awesome, awesome tool.
I understand that. And if you're out there listening today and you're like, man, should I consider a Roth IRA? Go to plantodaytaxbill.com. Plantodaytaxbill.com. You can do it from the comfort of your home. Sit there, put your numbers in, look at what the future numbers could be, and that would maybe wake you up a little bit to come in and have that conversation with Tim and Bobby about Roth conversion. So again, text or go to plantodaytaxbill.com. Plantodaytaxbill.com.
Our buddy Joe does. I can't hold back anymore.
Go
I'm
ahead, let's
sorry.
do it.
Our buddy Joe does a radio show up in Ohio, and when he gets done with his spiel, it's plantodaytaxbill.com. I can't help it. Every time you say that now, I want to go .com.
.com. Just do it. I love it. I love it. Plantodaytaxbill.com. .com. Gentlemen, I want to jump in. We got about 4 minutes left on this segment here. I think one of the largest topics that you got, clients are coming in, then we meet, we talk about it, and income planning definitely is the number one. Number two right now, people are just flat out worried about getting sick, Bobby, and what that's going to do to their portfolio. So let's talk about the risk of long-term care right now.
Yeah, it's a really big risk that I think if you're not planning for and your advisor's not talking about, you're really missing the boat. Over 70% of people over 65 will need some type of long-term care.
Wow.
It's not a given. There's a 30% chance that it won't happen, but that's a pretty big number, right? So if you're not planning for it, it can really derail your retirement. And listen, it's a good thing. Medical care is getting better. Mm-hmm. People are taking better care of themselves. And that means you may be sick longer than you were 15, 20 years ago.
That goes back to longevity risk, right? One of the biggest things that happen as we're living longer, we have more opportunity, Tim, to get sick because we're living longer now. And, if we look at the average cost for assisted living here in the state of Tennessee, $4,000 to $5,000 a month. If we look at full skill care, Alzheimer's, we're around $10,000 a month. Gosh, Tim, in-home care right now. My mother is using in-home care right now, and it's over $2,000 a month. That could wipe out your portfolio.
That's the biggest hole I've seen in most portfolio plans. They come in, they say, hey, we're doing well. This is the returns that we've made over the last few years. We're taking this kind of income. We're still growing our assets. We're giving money to the kids. We've got our estate planning put in place. And it usually comes back to, well, what happens if you get sick?
Yeah.
And they say, well, we have enough income for, a couple years, and then we have to start draining this bucket. And, it's just the lack of planning for it. I've seen people put together these full plans that would have worked very well, except they got sick.
Yeah.
And that's where the assets got drained. Maybe they went into Medicaid. Maybe they just didn't leave money to their kids for whatever reason. Or in some of the worser case scenarios, we've seen their kids have to move in and help take care of them.
Yeah. So not only are you, interfering with the retirement for your spouse, the kids part of it, Tim, you brought it up, and I've lived this, gentlemen. If you have to take care of your parent, one, you probably can't work. All right. Two, you're going to be stressed out. I mean, there's a lot of things filtering into this. So not only are you hurting yourself personally by not being prepared, you're really hurting your legacy and your children in this, Bobby.
Yeah, and the old way of planning for long-term care is, in my opinion, kind of going by the wayside. Traditional long-term care insurance, it was priced poorly by the actuaries 15, 20 years ago. And if you have a traditional long-term care policy, you're probably getting that love letter from the insurance company every year and saying, hey, Tim, we love that you bought a policy all those years ago. We'd love to keep you, but here's a 25% rate increase.
That's right. Or take it in lump sum and you lose so much money.
That's right. And so the insurance industry has gotten kind of wise to that and has really tried to come up with better ways to solve that problem. And they've got some great ones now.
Yep.
Fixed income annuities, some of them have, doublers.
The multi-benefit rider.
Multi-benefit rider, double an income for up to 5 years if you get sick. There are fixed income annuities that are put together just to take care of long-term care. And the cool thing about that is they're not nearly as expensive as the traditional policies were. And a lot of them have no medical underwriting because it's not a traditional insurance policy.
Right.
It's a fixed indexed annuity. And the actuaries don't care about your medical background when they do that.
It's all ways to leverage your assets to self-insure at the end of the day, right? I'm wondering when we can do this for car insurance.
Oh. That would be interesting.
Any
considering
insurance
car
companies
insurance is one of the
listen.
most highly inflated things out there right now.
Wouldn't that be cool to self-insure on car
Yeah,
insurance?
it would.
I don't know.
Talking about self-insurance, Tim, we got 1 minute. We do have a program where, let's say you just got money sitting around, guys, in the bank, doing nothing for you, collecting cobwebs. You got $100,000. We can take that $100,000 and put it into a program and get $300,000 for long-term care if you need it. How cool is that?
It's awesome. There is some underwriting
There
to
is.
it, but I will say the underwriting's pretty lenient compared to that traditional long-term care policy. It's a great way to utilize an asset for a purpose that's being underutilized right now, but it's not a waste of money if you don't get sick. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get sick and use this.
So
That's
we
the
have a lot of
important part.
options here, gentlemen. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly
We
right.
have a lot of options. And here's the thing, folks. You got to plan for long-term care. I know you don't want to think about it, but you got to plan for it. It just makes retirement easier. It makes you help you sleep better at night if you have that plan. Here's what I'd invite you to do. Text LTC to 877-706-7526. Again, that's LTC for long-term care. 877-706-7526. You'll get our long-term care guide. And once you get that, read through it, then you can come in and sit down with Tim and Bobby, and let's talk about a long-term care plan for you. Let's make sure you are protected if you're one of those 70% that Bobby talked about that might get sick down the road. It's real easy, folks. When we come back, we're going to dig into some estate planning, some legacy planning. What are you planning on doing with that money once the good Lord takes us home? That's what we're going to talk about when we come back. Stay tuned.
You might not be able to retire if you haven't thought about future inflation and future taxes. When you're going through your retirement plan, are you thinking about inflation? Does your current plan have inflation built into it? The national average is about 3%. Of course, it's been really, really high the last few years, but it has come back down. But you've got to build inflation into your retirement plan because we don't want to run out of money. Another thing I stress to my clients all the time is we got to think about future taxes. Our government has one source of income, and that is taxes. And I promise you, with $34 trillion in debt, $2 more trillion being added this year in 2024, the interest only on our national debt is $1 trillion. Folks, taxes are going to go up. You've got a window of opportunity in 2024 and 2025 while taxes are still on sale. Let's start looking at maybe taking some of your taxable money to tax-free money. This is all part of the Wealth Guard planning process. We'll do this for you when we're creating an income plan. You got to think about inflation and you got to think about taxes. Give us a call today and come in and see myself and my team, and let's put this plan together for you.
Welcome back to Plan the Day on Tomorrow. My name is Gary Thurman, CEO of Guardian Investment Advisors, in here today with Tim McDermott and Bobby Futch. The show's been really great, and if you missed the first two segments, we talked about income planning and we talked about long-term care planning. The two number one fears in the country right now. Number one is running out of money. Number two is getting sick. We covered a lot of great information in our first two segments, and I would invite you guys to come in, have conversations with us. We charge you absolutely nothing to have a conversation with you. Get a second opinion, if you will. Tim and Bobby are a phone call away. We'd love to sit down and have a conversation with you and see if we can help you retire stronger, retire healthier, and retire with no stress. That's what we're all about here at Guardian Investment Advisors. Bobby, a random Q&A, right? I'm going to throw a question at you. Mm-hmm. These folks have an old 401k, has limited investment options, which we know, but they're worried about fees and potential penalties if they make a mistake rolling it over. What is the best way to handle a rollover without triggering unnecessary cost?
Yeah, this is a big one.
Great question.
And it seems so simple, but it's really not. And you can really make mistakes doing this. And so whenever you roll over a 401k, which more often than not we suggest people do, it just allows you to take control of those assets.
Yep.
You're not subject to, you mentioned plan limitations. 401ks are limited in investment options by design. When they were created back in the late 70s, early 80s, the government really wanted to limit the amount of risk people could take in those assets. They didn't want to take maybe your only retirement asset and allow you to go buy Bitcoin and
because it was a replacement for pensions back then, right?
That's right. But if done well, you can roll it over into an IRA or a Roth IRA if you have a Roth option in your 401k, and really take control of those assets. So fees in 401ks can be lower than a lot of people think, but you're really not getting a lot for the fee you are paying, right? So I don't want people to be turned off by the fact that if you go to a manager or a custodian that has an annual fee, most do, you're really getting your money's worth when you roll those out. Now, the crux of your question is, how do I roll it over from a 401k to an IRA and not have penalties? Do not take possession of those assets.
Right.
And so if you do it right, your 401k provider will send a check directly to your new custodian. And it doesn't matter who it is. We use Charles Schwab here. They're a great custodian. Fidelity's another big one. Use whichever one you want, but make sure that rollover check is written to the custodian for your benefit and not you, Gary, or you, Tim McDermott. You can do it that way, but if that check gets lost in the mail, you sit on it, and it passes a certain amount of time, that entire account balance becomes taxable. And you're going to have to pay income taxes on your entire 401k.
Thoughts on that, Tim?
Do it.
Yeah, no, great points. When you call your 401k company to do that rollover, they will ask you if you've seen the special tax notice, right?
Yeah.
It's always a question that they ask. And it's a tax notice to say, hey, this is what could happen. This is the taxable consequences on X, Y, and Z, and it kind of explains that scenario. But to Bobby's point, yes, as long as you send it directly to the other custodian, you can avoid a lot of those issues. They changed the rollover rules several years ago to only allow one rollover per 365 days, except for 401ks.
Right.
So if you do a 401k to IRA, you can do as many of those as you need to in a year. Again, going custodian to custodian is the easiest way to avoid those issues. That's how we always do it along the way. Now, a lot of times they'll send that check out directly to your address.
Right.
But that check is still
Made
made
out
out
to
to
Charles
the
Schwab or
custodian. They do that for security purposes. Not all 401ks are created equal. In fact, they're very different across the board. And so that's why we try and help guide our clients along the way.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have clients all the time, or prospects that come in and say, I want to roll over my 401k, and we'll say, bring us the paperwork.
Yeah.
Let us look at the paperwork with you.
Yeah.
So it's so easy to mess up.
Why, guy? I'm just asking a question. Why are folks holding on to old 401ks? I mean, is it a sentimental thing? I worked for the company for 30 years. That's my baby. That's my 401k. Because you don't have as many options as you would if you rolled it to an IRA. You don't have an option to reduce your risk. The way we talked about bonds earlier, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much benefit, if you will, Bobby, if you actually roll that 401k over to someone like us with Charles Schwab.
Yeah, a lot of people get hung up on the fact that it's, quote, air quotes, so cheap to have my 401k.
They don't see the internal cost, right?
Yeah, you get what you pay for, right? The 401k is a great accumulation tool. If you're just going to put away money every 2 weeks or every month, however much you get paid, it's great for that, and it's great for reducing risk. But one, does that risk match you? And are you I'd promise you're not getting active management in that 401k.
Right.
You're the only one that can make changes to your 401k investment options. And are you looking at it daily, weekly, monthly? Probably not. It was probably a set it and forget it investment strategy, which, when you're young is okay.
That's okay.
But as you're preparing for retirement or as you're in retirement, that can be catastrophic. And you really need, if you're not going to pay attention to it often, you need to have somebody professional that's doing that.
And I'm going to keep beating up 401ks right now. So old 401ks, Tim, someone comes in, they're 66 years old, they're finally retiring. They want to talk about income. They want to talk about long-term care. They want to talk protection. Can we actually take that 401k, roll it to an IRA, and then maybe break some of that out to do an income plan with a fixed index annuity?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the investment option at the end of the day is up to you as long as it's in a self-directed IRA, right? That's what we end up rolling into. I would argue that maybe you're a few years late to the game in doing that.
Yeah.
You do not have to wait until you're retired to roll that 401k.
Yeah, I was just about to mention
in
that.
Good job.
most
Good job.
cases, right?
Yeah.
Now, we just sat with a guy, works at a big company here locally. I won't say their name, but we actually wanted to help him do some planning as he was getting ready for retirement. His 401k company would not allow him to do a rollover until he officially retired.
Wow.
So we said, hey, you're going to have to wait. But this plan can still make sense for you. We just had to adjust a couple of things along the way.
Right.
Yeah, and to add some more clarity to that, you mentioned, all 401k plans aren't the same. That's really important to understand what your 401k plan allows. Most of them will allow what's called an in-service withdrawal in the year in which you turn 59 and a half. So even if you're still working, you can pull money out of that 401k at 59 and a half and move it to an IRA. Still contribute to your IRA. Your 401k, right? Your 401k is not closing, but you're allowed to move some money out of that 401k to an IRA and have that control. Yeah. Some allow that benefit at 55.
Yes.
And so when you turn 55, if you have a 401k, it's really worth taking a look at to see whether your plan allows that, because I would almost guarantee you that you get a better benefit in an IRA than a 401k.
So, Bobby, I'm 60 years old. You said 59 and a half. I round up. Price is right, baby. Yeah. So I'm 60 years old. I'm retiring at 66. I got 6 more years. I've got $1 million in a 401k. I come sit down and talk to you and go, hey, I would like to reduce my risk. I would like to take $500,000 of my 401k, put it into something that's going to generate an income in 6 years from now. I mean, we've got a program right now, you and I both know this, that's rolling up income purposes at 15% a year.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Can we do that? Can we say, we can take this much, put it to an income product, as long as, like Tim said, it stays in an IRA, and get 15% a year for future income?
Yeah,
is the price right, Bob?
Is the price right?
Yeah.
The price go over. Right.
I miss Bob Barker.
You're exactly right. And I would ask you, Gary, why you're only moving $500,000 out of your 401k.
Okay. Great.
Not necessarily to go to a fixed income or a guaranteed product. That's an important part, and you should plan for that as early as you can, especially with such a strong roll-up. But I would take almost all of your money out of a 401k as soon as you can, put it in an IRA in the market, put it into an IRA with a fixed income annuity. Get it working for you.
And you're still putting money in your 401k.
That's right. That doesn't
still getting
change.
your match.
I would argue that most people don't move those 401ks, to your point earlier, because they don't know what to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm. It's all about education.
Status quo works. If it's worked for the last 30 years, does it continue to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Changing your status in life from accumulation to preservation changes a lot, and that's where you really want to make some adjustments.
Yeah. So, guys, I want to jump in because I did promise our listeners that we were going to talk about some legacy benefits. We got about 3 minutes. We got stuck on the old 401k there, but I thought that was a great topic. Yeah. So I wanted to stick with it. Let's talk about some legacy planning. Do you think it's important for retirees to let their children know what their plan is? Like, here's what we're doing. Here's the income we're going to take, Tim. Here's what we hope to leave you or not leave you. I mean, do you think it's important for the retirees to have conversations with their children about what's going on inside their plan?
I think it's important for them to at least start that conversation. Now, this looks different per person that walks in. We have some people that say, I don't want my kids to know what I have going on, right? Some of their kids may be in rough spots. Some of their kids may be big spenders. Some of their other kids may be great savers and more responsible in that aspect. And so a lot of times we see that, hey, we don't want our kids to know the value of things, but we want them to know who to reach out to and kind of what the system is in case something happens to us.
Yeah, you got to have that.
Without a doubt. In a previous life, as we like to say around here, I was affiliated with a trust company that did a lot of work like this. And I would talk to all my clients and say, we need to share as much as you're comfortable with. And I had some clients that would say, I don't want to share anything.
Right.
They can figure it out when I'm gone. Or, I had some clients that would share everything.
Yeah.
They would bring their kids into review meetings with them.
Right.
And as long as you work through that process with your family, the numbers probably aren't shocking to a lot of people. But what's really important is they know that there's a plan, and they know what that plan is going to be and who's going to execute that plan after mom and dad are gone.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what causes issues within the family after mom and dad are gone.
The candlestick that sat on the fireplace for 8
years.
years.
It's usually never the $1 million, but it's this random piece that the family's connected to, and it can cause a lot of issues.
It can. It causes a lot of family drama, right? So I think it's important, gentlemen, jump in, either one of you. You got to have your healthcare directives. You got to have your directives, and who's going to make that decision. Just had this conversation with my mother, and she has given me that responsibility because she knows my two sisters. I hope they're not listening today. If they are, they are. Emotional.
Yeah.
She thinks they would be too emotional about that. But Bobby, that's hard.
But that's a great thing about those advanced directives for healthcare is not only do they name the person that's going to make that decision for you, but they help guide that person in what decisions you want to have made.
Yep.
And so that can help take some of the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
You know, God forbid your mom gets into a spot where she can't articulate what she wants to have done. It's on paper.
You're her voice of reason,
You're
right?
her voice of reason. You have those directives on paper. I want this to happen. And again, that can help, stave off some family drama. Your sister may think mom wanted this. You say mom wanted that. Well, it's written down on a piece of paper.
Here's what mom wanted. Yeah.
It's clear.
And it's just one of those things. We're sitting down having a conversation about it because mom wants to make sure that they understand that. But I think it's important for legacy benefits. Where are you at with legacy? I mean, are you wanting to leave somebody behind? Are you wanting to support a charity? Are you wanting to support your grandkids and their college funding? Building a legacy benefit is all part of the planning process that we do here at Guardian Investment Advisors. But I want to make it very easy for you. Why don't you get our legacy guide? All you have to do is type the word legacy to 877-706-7526. Again, type the word legacy or text the word legacy, 877-706-7526. You'll get our legacy guide, and then you can read that, come in and have a conversation with Tim and Bobby, and let's make sure we have your legacy plan set up. When we come back, we're going to talk about some market updates, and we're going to get into some more questions and answers from you listeners right back. Have you ever refinanced a mortgage to get a better rate? What if you could do the same for your retirement? Interest rates rise, investment strategies shift, fixed and guaranteed products are stronger than they've been in years. If your financial advisor hasn't talked to you about refinancing your retirement, you could be leaving money on the table. It's time to explore your options. Call Guardian Investment Advisors today for a complimentary review and see if refinancing your retirement makes sense for you. Welcome back to Plan Today, Own Tomorrow with Gary Thurman, Tim McDermott, and Bobby Futch. We've got Tristan Baker over in the corner making sure all our video and sound is coming through to you guys. And I hope you like this new format. This is a brand new format for us. We're going kind of off the cuff, if you will, having some fun, just talking about different topics when it comes to retirement planning and money and investing. And we try to make it a little fun as well. So today we have covered income planning. We've covered long-term care planning. We've covered legacy planning. We talked about why you should not have an old 401k, why you should take control of that money. And then, gentlemen, I just want to do a quick conversation or have a quick conversation about things going on in the market. We're mid-year right now, and we've seen a kind of crazy market. I pulled up Wall Street Journal, today's article, and it says investors are weary of a roller coaster coming up. And then another one, stocks fall sharply as oil prices surge. I mean, Tim, the market has kind of been all over the place this year. And, let's talk about that and talk about maybe what might be coming down the pipeline. We don't have a crystal ball. But let's just talk about the market in general right now.
Aggressive policy changes, aggressive moves in the market, legislative changes coming down the pipeline. I mean, there's been a lot of change this year, right? New party in office. And it's upsetting, the known of what everything is, right? It's not that it doesn't even matter if you agree with the legislative changes or the policy changes from our new office. It's a matter of how aggressive the approach is right now. And it's creating some quote unquote unknowns, right? It's always the unknown that the market doesn't like.
Yeah.
The unknown of what's inflation going to look like. How are these tariffs going to land out? What's going to happen overseas with potential wars going on, right? Shouldn't even call it potential anymore, right?
Right.
It's the unknown of what's going on. And so there's some rockiness. People talk about a flat market where, the market starts and ends in the same place. It's rarely ever flat, right? It may start and end in the same place or a similar place, but there's usually rockiness within that market to get you there. And so that could be what we're going into this year. I don't know. We're looking at the effects as of right now, and I'd say they look pretty decent. Inflation report just came out looking pretty attractive. Everybody was concerned about high inflation from tariffs, and so far we haven't seen any massive effects from that. Those may still be coming down the pipeline, but right now inflation is holding really steady. I think the May report showed 2.4%, which was, I think, pretty promising at the end of the day. We're watching what's going on overseas. That, is kind of for lack of a better term, a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what's going to come of all that, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the big deal there, Tim, is there's a lot going on in the world right now. Not all of it is directly related to, economics in the U.S. market, but it's just that uncertainty. And it's the market reacting to headlines seemingly every day that aren't necessarily economic headlines, but the market has to react because they don't know how it's going to play out. The economics in the United States is strong. I mean, we're in a good spot right now.
Unemployment's low.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things going on in the United States market right now, but the headlines make it choppy. I've got some numbers here. We're in June, right? Halfway through the year, as Gary pointed out. U.S. equities have been down as much as 15%, up almost 10%. These are swings intra-year, right? Oil, which a lot of people take a look at, it means more than what you're paying at the gas pump. Almost every industry needs energy, so oil rather is a big input to that. It's been down as much as almost 20 and up 10 in 6 months. And I think the big thing coming out of the Middle East here recently is going to be, what does that do to energy prices? Mm-hmm. Iran isn't a huge global exporter of oil. They make about 3% of the oil in the world, export it rather. But what it can have disruptions on energy transport, and that's something we're keeping an eye on because you can produce all the energy you want, but if you can't get it to where it needs to be, it makes it more expensive.
War is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think that's going to impact what's going on in our markets with what's going on over there right now?
Yeah, of course. But, war statistically has always actually been good for our economy.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it's been a good thing for our economy. More factories produce more goods for U.S. government. U.S. government's a reliable buyer, right? They say the same thing for inflation. Inflation's actually good for the economy, or a good effect sometimes from the economy, but there's hiccups and upsets and pullbacks along the way that aren't exactly fun to run through, and that's I think probably what we're seeing right now. So
I come in, I'm a brand new client with Tim and Bobby right now. I just retired, and I'm worried about some of these things. I'm worried about the future market. I'm worried about my income, my long-term care. I'm worried about all these different things. Can we spend a few minutes talking about our bucket strategy, Bobby, and how we just take advantage and keep things simple for our clients?
Yeah, that's a great point. And part of the planning we do here at Guardian and what we think kind of makes us unique is we're really income focused. And so what that allows us to do is if we can plan to guarantee you that income you need in retirement, your extra money in the market, while still subject to market movement, is not as disruptive to your overall retirement plan as it would be otherwise, right? If you know those checks are coming in every month, the bills are paid, you can go out to eat, and Tim always likes to talk about your secret Taco Bell budget. If that's taken care of, you can work through these periods of market volatility better. And if we do a good job educating you on your plan, you're not as worried about it. We met with a super nice lady a client of ours yesterday. She's been a client of Gary's in the firm for years and years and years. And she came in, she was worried. She's like, I just see what's going on the news every day. All my friends are losing money. My goodness, how bad is it going to be? She has properly structured fixed income and annuities. It was the coolest thing yesterday, Tim. In that
I want to hear more about this.
For us to go, Miss Client, you're right. Your clients have probably seen your friends have seen some volatility. They may be down in their you're good. You haven't lost a penny.
Isn't that awesome?
You hadn't lost a penny. And so I'm glad you came in and talked to us. We can talk through all these things. This is what Tim and I do every day. We love talking about it. But for her, it didn't matter. It didn't matter because she had guaranteed floors on her investments.
We
She
both
didn't
got
lose a
hugs
penny.
on the way out the door.
She
Well,
did.
I didn't get a hug.
You
Y'all
weren't
could have come
there,
by.
Gary.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't here. Sorry. So she's in our green bucket, correct? So,
That's right.
Most of her assets, let's say, are in the green bucket, but we have a yellow bucket and a red bucket, Tim. Talk about the yellow bucket and the red bucket as well.
Yeah, yellow bucket, not the most exciting, but is equally as important. You want to make sure that you have some money in the bank. Some money that if the car breaks down, the roof needs to get replaced, the AC goes out, you got quick access for emergency funds that you can pay those expenses for quickly and not upset the rest of the plan along the way. The red bucket being, I think, again, equally important. This is money that gives us flexibility in our plan. Flexibility is kind of the name of the game, right?
It's your
Yeah.
money in the market.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
money in the market, money that is subject to risk, but traditionally has the best growth. Keep up with inflation, excess funds that we can pull out for vacations or to replenish those emergency funds once
Right.
you pull some of those funds down, right? The nice thing about the bucket strategy, the green bucket allows us to have consistent income so that even when the market's down, even when we're in chaotic times, we're not pulling from a value
Right.
that is currently in a down situation. That is really the key picture that kills those Monte Carlo simulations that we talked about earlier. And so giving ourselves flexibility in the plan to look at some tax savings down the road, doing some Roth conversions,
Right.
pulling excess funds, this is kind of what makes everything tick and work.
You know what I love about this, gentlemen? Everything we've talked about today, all I keep thinking about is that word we say all the time, PLAN. Mm-hmm. You're putting a plan together. I think a lot of people go to some of these big shop firms out there, and all they talk about is growth, 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 growth. That's what they. Growth is a beautiful thing.
And it's important.
It's important, but they're not putting a plan together.
Yeah. If growth is your plan, I would implore you to get a second option.
Yeah.
A second opinion.
Second opinion, yeah.
Yeah, second opinion because
Second option, too.
Second option, second opinion.
Because growth again is important, but you need to make sure that you're only taking as much risk as you need to make your plan work. We've turned prospects away that
We
said,
have.
Tim, Bobby, Gary, here's my pot of money. Make me as much as you can. That's not a plan, and that's not what we do.
It's not what we do
Now,
here.
it's important to have very good investment management. Don't get me wrong. That's an important part of a plan. But make as much money as you can as a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And so you need to make sure that you're being very measured in the amount of risk you're taking in the red bucket.
Isn't that what fiduciary means, Tim? It is covering all the buckets.
Where we're legally responsible for putting your best interest first, and your best interest is more than just the growth of the asset at the end of the day.
Exactly. I love it. All right, gentlemen, we got about 2.5 minutes left. I want to throw some questions at you that's come through here on our website. Bobby, I'll start with you. I am 64 years old, still working. When should I file for Social Security?
Not now,
Because why?
because you're still working.
There you go.
Well,
Maybe.
Maybe.
Are you working
Could
part-time?
depends on
Yeah.
how much she's making, right?
So I would assume you're still in your career. I made a quick joke about that.
I should have said that.
That was a fair
I'm still
judgment,
working
though.
full-time, and I make
Full-time.
$50,000 a year.
Okay.
There you go.
Wait. Right. What you want to make sure is that you're maximizing the amount of benefit you get and you're not getting penalized. If you're taking Social Security and you're still working in your career, you're really kind of just, putting $2 in one pocket and pulling it out of the other.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And if you have the income you need, let that defer. But there's very little reason to retire, quit working, and not take Social Security.
Agreed.
A lot of our clients we talk to, a lot of people are working part-time
Right,
or
right.
volunteering or something. That's great, kind of a second career, if you will, doing something they enjoy doing for, not as much money as they were making in their primary career. That's a little more complicated of a question to ask. We'd have to know, how much money you're making. Is it enough to pay your bills? You think you're going to go back to work full-time? Because we've seen that too.
Oh, we've seen
People
it.
being retired 2 or
Yeah.
3 years and go, I thought I was ready.
Bored.
I'm not ready.
Yeah, I'm
I'd
bored.
and it's not about the money. It's about going to work every day, seeing your colleagues, seeing your coworkers, having that social interaction. So it's really a complicated question, but generally we say if you're still working full time, you should wait to take those benefits.
Yeah, because you can't. You're limited on income when you turn on your Social Security benefit, Tim.
That's right. Yeah. You can only make, I think it's like $25,000 a year.
Right.
Any dollar that you make over that, you can get penalized for.
So, Tim, quick question, 30 seconds. I know that's tough. Can I leave my Roth IRA to my grandkids?
Yes, and you should.
Grandkids do not have to pay. Grandkids don't have to pay taxes. I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing there is that you can still use the 10-year stretch rule, so that money can continue to grow tax-free for your grandkids for the next 10 years after your passing. Can be a huge thing. If you want to see what that looks like, plan today, taxbill.com.
There you go. PlanTodayTaxBill.com. Hey, guys, I appreciate you listening to the show. Something I'd like to do for you guys today, I'd like to offer my book to you. It's called Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. It's going to give you 6 keys to retiring healthy, to retiring smart, to retiring stress-free. All you have to do is text the word book to 877-706-7526. Again, the word book, 877-706-7526. We'll send you a digital copy, and then we'll send you out the hard copy as well. Again, text the word book, 877-706-7526. That wraps it up for another edition of Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. I so appreciate you